downstairs on a couple of matters, tree ordinance and budget-related matters. Before I call the meeting to order, I just want to reiterate what Brittany told all of you, that we're doing these meetings on a hybrid sort of basis. Folks can watch online and call in and join the conversation. We have one public hearing matter tonight and community comment. Folks can always call in for that. So there are a couple opportunities tonight to engage with the council. We'll first visit with people here, our fellow residents that are here to address the council on matters of concern to them. And having provided that information, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk, Sharon Ellison, to call the roll.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Risser.
Here.
Mayor Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. And council members and staff, we've got a form of meeting agenda that's been published for our benefit and the public's benefit. And is there anyone that wishes to modify the agenda in any form or fashion on the council or staff? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves, Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the meeting agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. We have a meeting agenda. Next is community comment. We talked about community comment, and we're going to take folks in the audience first, and then we'll move to people that might be calling in online. And please come up.
Nancy Greer, 5225 Grandview Square, Unit 216. You know why I'm here. I have brought a copy of the email on Eden Avenue crosswalk safety that I sent the council members on 7/24. I assume that it ended up in your spam filter because I never received a reply, although I did get one from Representative Joachim. You will see in that email, we have been in contact with Traffic Safety Coordinator for 2 years about the crosswalk safety. I hope that you will put an advanced traffic flasher on Eden Avenue as you have done in Valley View Road. Another concern is on Vernon Avenue as you approach the business district, the speed limit sign changing it from 40 miles an hour to 30 miles per hour is not visible because of tree leaves. This also applies to the 25 mile per hour sign as you turn onto Eden Avenue. People need to be able to see the speed limit changes. Approaching Vernon Avenue from Acadia, I have not been able to find one speed limit sign at all. If you spend any time around the Grandview Business District, you know that not only are senior citizens patronizing the library and Jerry's as well as other businesses, so are the children who go to Our Lady of Grace and Edina High School. I would think in light of recent events, all safety concerns would be front and center for this council. Would you please make Grandview area safe for everyone? And if you don't want to see me again, fix the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. And
Please read this.
yeah, I think that we probably all have read it, and our apologies, my apologies if I didn't respond to you. I think we tend to send those.
Nobody responded except for her.
Yeah, we tend to send them on to the staff right away for them to look at because these all involve things that need to be done that you've mentioned here. So we appreciate that input.
Yes.
Okay.
2 years is a long time to wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Oh, wait.
Oh, Ms. Greer, wait a minute.
We have an update on this item tonight.
Yeah, if you'd like, we can give it now. So we
Yeah, you
ordered,
might as well do that before you leave.
Okay.
the equipment was ordered in June. It
That
also,
should have been done 2 years ago, though.
Hold on.
I'm very angry about this. Okay, so it's been ordered in June, and you got it now?
and you can't make it up. Everything got delivered except for the flashing beacon that's needed for that thing. So we are reaching out to the vendor. They're in Milwaukee, and we may send a staff member over there just to pick it up because their next delivery date is the end of September. And we think that's too long. So literally, we could have had it installed last Friday. Our electricians were ready to install it. So
It should have been here a long time ago, and you know that because of dealing with Nick Baller and way back in September of 2023. Please cut the trees so people can see the I had to look really hard for the one on Eden Avenue.
No,
So
I
city
think that
staff- can look at the Eden Avenue one. The ones on Vernon is county staff, and we'll connect with them and make sure they're cleared of invisible.
Thank you.
Nobody gets hit there. I'll be back if nothing is done.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is Alexander Melton. I live at 5617 Wycliffe Road, Edina. Thank you for the opportunity to present an issue before City Council. Spring of this year, the City Electrical Supervisor made my neighbors and I aware of the city's intention to work with Excel to place a transformer in the easement to the west of our residence. We were told by the city and Excel that the transformer was necessary to provide appropriate three-phase power as a dedicated power source for the city's Hawks Lake lift station, which provides water level control for the community adjoining Hawks Lake and the 9 Mile Creek watershed. We are broadly supportive of this sort of critical infrastructure investment as it benefits the community and the environment. It appears the City of Edina requested power feed enhancement from Excel. Excel complied with the city's request with the installation of a large transformer of a size that wasn't communicated to the neighbors. It seems possible that the city should have had some knowledge of the size of the transformer, but regrettably did not communicate the relevant details during coordination with the neighborhood. Information on the height, width, and depth of the transformer was never made available during pre-installation coordination. Information on the dimensions of the transformer pad was made available by the city electrical supervisor, and a sketch of the location of the transformer relative to the easement was provided during coordination. Because the pad is at ground level, it is effectively a minor visual consideration compared to the dimensions of the transformer that sits atop the pad. With fill and grading that followed the power feed excavation, the transformer has effectively raised significantly above the grade of the original power feed hole. The transformer size is significantly larger than anything we've seen placed directly in front of residences. We reached out to Excel to ask about comparable installations elsewhere in the city, and the installations that were provided, none of them were in front of a residence. So with that, we have a picture of the transformer here. That's just me pointing at it. This is looking out our front door. That's kind of the vantage point. Next, please. This is looking down Wycliffe Road. North, you see a residence north of us in an adjoining development, and you can see the elevation of the transformer. Next, please. This is looking at our house. Our house is in the background, and it gives you a little bit of a feel for the sheer size of the transformer.
That's your front door there, Mr. Melton?
It is.
Okay, thank you for that.
Previous picture. This picture is looking out our dining room window. Oh, okay. Yes, this is our dining room window. Sorry for that. We're seeking the city's assistance in design and implementing appropriate grading to lower the visual perceived height of the transformer and landscaping to address visual impact of the placement of the transformer directly in front of a residence in an area commonly utilized by the neighborhood. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to bring forth this issue.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Melton. Thanks for coming and expressing that concern. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Ralph Sickert. I live at 4311 Cornelia Circle. Truth matters.
Mr. Zickert, we're not suing anything on your,
Correct. What I told her is that I'm going to remove this.
oh, okay, all right,
About
okay. I thought
3/4
maybe you
of the way
wanted it visual now, but you don't, you've got timing, you've got a timing issue.
Correct.
Okay,
I
thank you.
don't, but somebody else does.
Okay.
Let's start over. Mayor, council members, my name is Ralph Sickert. I live at 4311 Cornelia Circle. Truth matters. I like that statement. Truth does matter, and I believe it appropriate for residents to speak up when the council or staff go astray. Some contend there is no financial sleight of hand when it comes to Edina's finances. Yet in June, council approved terminating 6 employees in the transfer of $1 million onto Hennepin County tax levy. In July, council approved adding an incremental $1.2 million to residents' gas and electric bills. And as of tonight, the council has been silent regarding the $4 million for equipment and maintenance deferred from the 2026-2027 general levies, and the acknowledged purpose of these actions is all about the optics, not reduce the actual tax burden on residents. Yet, what it does allow is for the city to claim a 9% levy increase rather than the previously projected 17%. If this isn't sleight of hand, I don't know what is. Truth matters. Some contend Edina's AAA bond rating is a reflection of an extremely well-run city. Per Google, bond ratings are a measure of credit worthiness, i.e. how likely it is that a bond will be repaid in full. Edina's AAA rating reflects the extremely low risk of default. It is not a measure of how well Edina is run. Edina's incredibly large tax base in relationship to its current debt is what garnishes the AAA bond rating. Edina could borrow and spend money like a drunken sailor and still have a great bond rating, as long as the credit agencies were confident Edina had the ability to repay all its debts. Truth matters. Case in point, Edina is spending money like a drunken sailor. Edina is on track to spend $30 million for a pedestrian tunnel under France, $21 million for a parking ramp to serve yet an unbuilt commercial building at the U.S. Bank site, and an additional $10 million for future aquatic center amenities over and above the recent emergency approval of the $9 million tax abatement bond. Meanwhile, Edina has identified over $70 million of unfunded deferred projects, an amount that has doubled in 3 years. For all these reasons, Edina is not fiscally well run. Staff presentations are littered with spurious slides, unlike this one, that would have you believe Edina as one of the lowest tax burdens in the metro and is therefore well run. Yet compared against median home values, Edina is the highest tax burden. Truth matters. Open your eyes, council. Look in the mirror. Some of us can see you have no clothes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zickert. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the council on a matter of concern to them? All right, let's check online. Do we have anybody online that wishes to address the council in public comment?
We do not have any callers.
Okay, very good. Turning to our city manager, our process is that these comments like you've heard tonight, we'll try to address them from a staff level online by the end of the week. And then we also follow up at the subsequent city council meeting to let folks know on a broader basis what the responses were to issues that were raised at a prior meeting. And I'm going to turn now to Manager Neal to see if there's anything he needs to report out on from our prior city council meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor. At the previous city council meeting, we had one comment, and that came from Ms. Greer, and it was about the flashing pedestrian warning signals. We didn't have an answer for her at that time, but we did tonight, and we've offered her that response earlier in the meeting.
Okay, very good. We've got a consent agenda, folks. I think everybody wanted to take off 6.11, I think, for council conversation. And is there anything else that council members wish to remove from the consent agenda? Okay. With the exception of 6.11, is there a motion to adopt the balance of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion?
So moved.
Member Egan moves, Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion, with the exception of item 6.11. Any further conversation? Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of adoption of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion, with the exception of 6.11, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The consent agenda items are adopted and approved, and 6.11 we will now take up for discussion purposes, which was the staff response to the petition for traffic control in the Chowan Park neighborhood. Yeah, we got our city engineers back in town, which is great, and Mr. Scipione is here as well. With the staff recommendation on traffic control in the Chowan Park neighborhood, and it differs from what the neighbors would like to see, and so we're going to have that conversation.
Yeah, I know we received some questions earlier from Member Risser, and she provided some pictures and graphics. I don't know if she would like to start with the questions, or?
I would, and also, we received a map from a resident, and I would like that shown as well. So I'm forwarding that to Manager Neal, and I apologize.
Would it be helpful,
I had
Member
already
Risser,
done
if the staff made their presentation and their recommendation, and then you ask questions?
That's fine, yep.
I think they're going to show a similar map to that one.
Yep, I got them.
Why don't you gentlemen go ahead? This was an issue that came up about a month or so ago, 6 weeks, and we asked you to take a look at the recommendations of the neighbors, and you've come back with some ideas on that. Not a full adoption, but at least your professional opinions on what ought to be done over there.
Yep, and we'll let Andrew Scipione kick it off with the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So the graphic here shows the existing traffic control that is in the Chowan Park neighborhood. The different colors indicate signalized intersections, four-way stop, two-way stop, one-way stop, and uncontrolled are the green. The intersections noted with the black star are the intersections that are covered in this petition. All four of them are uncontrolled intersections. If you go to the next slide. So when reviewing the warrants for stop signs and traffic control devices, one of the factors we look at is crash history. This graphic here shows all of the reported crashes within the neighborhood within the last 10 years. Of the 4 intersections that were included in this petition, only one intersection had any reported crashes in that time period, and that's the intersection of Abbott Avenue and 59th Street. That intersection specifically had 4 crashes within that 10-year period, but most importantly, 3 of those crashes happened within a 12-month period, which is which meets one of the warrants in the MUTCD for a two-way stop. We also looked at sight lines at all of these intersections. Again, this map here shows just the 4 intersections included in this petition. The red intersections noted areas, or the red circles here note intersections where there are sightline obstructions. In some cases, it's due to trees that are on adjacent properties. In some cases, it's just because of the topography of the streets and the adjacent properties. The one intersection in green there, that is Zenith Avenue and 57th Street, did not have any sightline obstructions. So looking at those 2 factors, what we are proposing is that 2 of the intersections noted in the orange circles with the yellow outline would be a two-way yield control. These are intersections that have sightline obstructions, but don't meet the warrants for a two-way or an all-way stop. The blue circle with the red outline is that intersection that has that crash criteria that meets the warrants for a two-way stop. So we are recommending a two-way stop at that intersection. And then the remaining intersection, which is Zenith Avenue and 57th Street, does not meet the warrants based on crash history, traffic volume, or sightline obstructions. So we're recommending no change at that intersection.
We'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Member Risser.
If I could get some of the images that I sent, and specifically, okay, this is a good one to start with. When we look going south on Zenith toward 57th Street, it is the topography, and it is very challenging to see what is happening along 57th. You really do literally have to stop, and so I do appreciate that in your analysis, item B under 2B-6 said, a restricted view exists that requires road users to stop in order to adequately observe conflicting traffic on the through streets. And for that reason, it's concerning that with Zenith and 59th, we're talking about putting in a yield sign, which doesn't really let people know they need to come to a full stop. And this was a corner, I drove it, I visited, I walked it, and there's visibility issues going south on Zenith and also going west on 57th. So that, for that intersection, that was what I was really concerned about. The other thing is, if we can go to another of my images, I can't remember the order. I did look at the documentation that you cited, the Minnesota MUTCD guide, and it does say that it's important to sign intersections that are in areas that are signalized and, where there are signs. And when you look at these, and I did visit and I did look, you've got 2 additional dots that I did not see when I did my count. And what I found were the additional ones, like I found 5 at 3-way stops, but the only 4-way stops that were unmarked were the ones that the residents wanted to have marked. So it's kind of frustrating to get this information now, and so I can't go out and look and see, but it looks like the other dots that are there are all on 3-way stops, not 4-way stops. So that is a concern. I do think it makes good policy if you're in an area where there are all of these marked stops to continue with that. And a resident did send a map. If we could get that posted, that would be really helpful, and that was what I sent to Manager Neal.
Did it get added, Brittany? Yeah, we got these earlier today, but if Councilmember Risser just sent it, maybe there's other questions we could take.
Did you work off that city map?
This was
opposed to what
just
the
a
neighbors-
really good illustration about the prevalence of stop signs. I can also say that residents talk about taking Uber rides and having to make sure that they are saying, watch out, it's an unmarked intersection, and caution the driver, because the driver is so used to what's going on in Minneapolis since it's so close by, and they mark all of their intersections in the adjacent neighborhood. And so suddenly they're in a spot where they think, okay, so this is what the neighbors provided, and it's those yellow circles where they would like to see signage, and you can see that there's stop signs all around this area. There are some places, the 3-way stops, and they thought, okay, those are a little complicated, like 57th and York, but the ones that they are looking to have stop signs added to are 4-way standard, just like the other signs around. There's a lot of kids in this neighborhood. I was told along one of the blocks in Zenith, there were over 40 children. I talked to a kid on a bike who told me that delivery drivers get confused. And so he watches out for those delivery drivers because, when you're approaching an intersection and the ones around it are all signed. You assume as you're approaching it, you don't see a stop sign, that there's got to be a stop sign going the other way. I really think that this is a basic request, and I think it would be in keeping with Minnesota MUTCD guidance because it is an area where there is all this signage, to be consistent and to add these additional 4 signs.
Thank you, Member Risser. Member Agnew.
Thank you, and thank you for going through and doing this additional analysis. There's clearly a lot to survey and understand, and I actually really appreciate the diagram that you had shown, kind of covering all of the different intersections within that area. And I totally understand like how you got to this recommendation, right? Like based off of the guidelines and based off of the processes that we follow. I will say that having kind of understood the recommendation and how you got to this, I'm still supportive of having 2-way stops at these intersections. And I think the reason being, and I think this is maybe even similar to what Member Risser was saying, but to introduce yield signs into this neighborhood when there are no other yieldings in that, I think that almost introduces a different concept than what drivers are probably going to be expecting. And so I would suggest, or my ask would be that we put up the 2-way stop at those 4 requested intersections. But again, thank you for the analysis that you did.
Thank you for that, Member Agnew. Member Pierce.
If you could go back to the previous view with the stop signs on it. So thanks again for going through this. How many of these do you do in a year when?
We get 200 to 300 requests a year.
A year. So that's.
Different levels of requests, of course. But.
That's a lot of volume. And so we definitely appreciate you guys going through it. And so I come at this from maybe a different perspective. And you've heard me say this before. It's challenging for me that our processes lead us to outcomes that are not congruent with the lived experience of the resident. And so and honestly, I don't know how to reconcile that, but that is a big challenge for me. And so when I looked at this, it just seemed odd that there are 4 intersections that are uncontrolled amongst however many that are on that sheet. And I can't answer why that would be and have it make sense to me. And so I thought that we should have, at a minimum, I thought we'd come back with 2-way stops at those. And then when to read the report, and then we're saying, well, let's do yield signs. And it just didn't make sense to me. And so I try to look for at least what Councilmember Pierce feels is logical. And I know that is not the way that you guys process through those 200 to 300 requests. You got to have standards you're trying to apply and reason behind it. I spent time with you to understand some of that, and there are some things that totally make sense. But in this case, I thought we should, at a minimum, have two-way stop signs. And so I agree with the earlier points.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 2 things. One is we look at crash history, but the stories that came to us are of kids on bikes or on foot having near misses. And so the crash history really seems to me vehicle-centric. And the worries that people were coming were non-motorized vehicle-centric. And so I know we have to look at crash and we have to have standards and everything, but the stories were overwhelming of kids feeling dangerous here. And then the second standard that was mentioned when we first opened this up is, would it make it more dangerous? And when you're looking at, this is such a stunning graphic that every other intersection has stop signs. And so I don't see how adding stop signs when there are already so many would make it more dangerous. And I don't know if you guys have an opinion about whether adding stop signs would make it more dangerous, but it feels like there's already an expectation that you're going to be stopping. If you're going north-south, you're going to be stopping a lot. I don't know if I can't tell by the way that it's oriented if it hits the east-west or north-south, but to follow the pattern that's there, I think would be logical. But do you have a sense that adding stop signs would make it more dangerous?
We've made our recommendations, and if council tells us to put in stop signs, we'll do that. I'm hearing that a pretty consensus. I'm not concerned about adding a few more stop signs for safety. We know in this area, most people are not stopping at any of these stop signs. There's not enough volume out there. They're slowing down, but they're not stopping. So adding 8 more stop signs, I'm not concerned with safety.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. So yeah, I would recommend the 2 stop signs, like my colleagues are.
If I may, I just want to point out the petition technically at one of the intersections at Zenith Avenue and 59th asked for an always stop at that intersection. If council would like to direct staff to do stop signs in a neighborhood instead of yield, I would suggest doing 2-way stop at that intersection instead of 4-way.
Why is that?
It doesn't meet MUTCD warrants for an all-way stop.
Okay, all right, yeah, thanks for that explanation. So I think my colleagues have done a great job of talking about the way you go about your work, which is something we really appreciate. This is why it got deferred 6 weeks ago, because we wanted your professional input, and we got some heat for it, you know. But when you look at sight lines and speed and crash data and volume, that doesn't necessarily, as Member Pierce says, reflect the lived experience of people in the neighborhood who are there every day observing behavior of drivers. And I thought Member Jackson made a great point too about the fact that if we did follow the neighborhood recommendation, there is some real element of consistency to that. It reminds me a bit of Country Club, you know, where they may not be stopping in Country Club either at every stop sign, but it does slow them down, and it makes a difference, I think, in just the pace of traffic and the narrowness of the streets over in Country Club too, really add to the safety factor. So as we all have mentioned and support, the professionalism of our engineering staff is really greatly appreciated, and we admire the work that you do, and you're doing it based on data. But as Member Pierce said, that lived experience has value too. You know, data can't necessarily drive everything. So I'm going to support the neighborhood request too. I actually think they've done a good job all the way through. So here's what they'd like to see, and I'm going to see if somebody wants to make a motion to this effect. A 2-way stop north and south directions at the intersection of Abbott Avenue and 57th Street. A 2-way stop north and south directions at the intersection of Abbott Avenue and 59th Street. 2-way stop east and west directions at the intersection of Zenith Avenue and 57th Street, and an all-way stop at the intersection of Zenith Avenue and 59th Street. Is there a motion to adopt those stop signs at those locations?
So moved.
Risser moves.
Second.
Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the motion as stated. Discussion?
I would like to maybe have a little bit of discussion based off of the engineering recommendation that we do 2-way stops in each of those sites. I also would prefer to defer to engineering on whether it's north-south or east-west based on what makes sense. So I would prefer to see an amendment to just dictate 2-way stop controls at each of those 4 intersections and allow engineering to make the determination. So should I make a motion for an amendment?
You can make an amendment to see if we get a second to that.
I'll second that amendment.
Thank you. Okay, so now the
Motion and a second
motion.
on the amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Member Risser.
Can we go back to that first slide that I showed? That was the street view.
that one.
Yeah. This is headed toward where they're requesting a four-way stop, and there is a slope in the road, and then there's also the property on the corner, that northeast corner, and there is slope on that property. So as you're going down Zenith, it's hard to see who's coming or if anyone's coming from 57th. And if you're headed in a westerly direction along 57th, it's hard to see if anyone's coming down Zenith. And so that was the motivation. And I did, when I was out there, I talked to two people on two different occasions who were touring me around, and I said, well, if you can only have a two-way stop, what direction do you want? And neither of them would commit because they said, we really think it needs to be a four-way. So I want to share that.
Yeah, well, last fall was election season. I spent a lot of time in this neighborhood and understand it like Member Risser does, and I think the rest of you do as well. I'm inclined to favor the recommendation of the neighborhood in terms of how they ought to be placed. But understand we have an amendment in place here. Any further discussion on the amendment, which would let the staff decide where those stop signs would go, north, south, east, west at those intersections? Okay. All those in favor of adoption of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye. Nay. I usually say nay when
Yeah. Nay. Okay, the amendment fails on a 3-2 vote. Now back to the main motion, which was the neighborhood recommendation. Anybody want me to reread it? I don't think we have to. Okay, so those in favor of the main motion, which adopts the recommendations of the neighborhood as to all 4 of those intersections, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The neighborhood recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your input. Thank you for folks for being here. I think some of you are probably here on that issue. Okay. We're done with the consent portion of the agenda, and we're going to take up the only public hearing matter we have tonight, which is an appeal on a certificate of appropriateness denial over in the Country Club area on Edgebrook Place. And Emily Dalrymple, our Assistant City Planner, has this matter. And the recommendation, folks, is tonight we hear the testimony and take any public testimony as well. Hear from the proponent and anybody in opposition. And then we'll move to close public input at noon on Sunday, September 7th, and then take it up for action at our September 16, 2025 City Council meeting. I'll turn now back to Ms. Dalrymple.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, council is asked to hold a hearing for a request to appeal a certificate of appropriateness request at 4630 Edgebrook Place that a portion of which was denied by the Heritage Preservation Commission. The subject property, 4630 Edgebrook Place, is located within the Country Club District on the west or south side of Edgebrook Place. The existing home on the lot is a 2-story colonial revival style home that was built in 1935, which is within the period of significance in the Country Club District. The certificate of appropriateness application for changes to the street-facing facade included proposed changes that included a garage and second-story addition with a modified roof to realign and center the gable roof, shorten the hipped eave roof over the garage and add new brackets, expand the garage door opening and install a new paneled garage door, enlarge the second floor window openings over the garage to meet egress requirements, raise the front stoop and shorten the existing covered entry columns, and remove the fan light transom over the existing front door and install a new arched front door. The project also includes an addition off of the rear of the property that required a side yard setback variance from the Planning Commission, which was approved at their meeting on August 13th. The Heritage Preservation Commission approved a portion of the certificate of appropriateness request at their meeting on August 12th. What was approved, or the associated with the changes, what was approved were the changes that were outside of that front entry. Staff outlined a path of approval or denial for the Heritage Preservation Commission to consider for changes to that front entry. The applicant's request included adding a front step to the exterior of the home without changing the roof line of the existing covered entry. The applicant then proposed to remove the fan light over the existing front door and replace the existing front door with an arched front door so the door would meet door height requirements of the building code. Ultimately, the Heritage Preservation Commission denied the request for the removal of the historic fan transom panel and the installation of a new front door. The denial was based on the findings that the arched doors are not typical features of the colonial revival style, and that the historic fan transom panel is a character-defining feature of this home. So tonight, the request is to close the public input at noon on Sunday, September 7th, and continue action to September 16th. Angela Wingate from Ray Camp Larson Architects, on behalf of the property owner, is here, and she will give a short presentation. And the city's preservation consultants from Hess Royce and Company are also here to answer questions that the city council might have. With that, I can take any questions.
All right, Ms. Dalrymple, thanks for that presentation. Questions for Ms. Dalrymple at this point in time? All right, let's ask Ms. Wingate to come up and provide us with her thoughts on. Your firm does a lot of work in this neighborhood, and your lead architect was a member of the Heritage Preservation Board, so I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
Yes, thank you.
And please give us your name and address, too, your business address.
Sure. Let's see, my name is Angela Wingate, and I work with Ray Camp Larson Architects, and we're 2732 West 43rd Street in Minneapolis. The property address, I think we already had that defined. Would you like me to state that again, the address? 4630 Edgebrick Place. So we are here tonight appealing the action that was taken by the Heritage Preservation Commission. And we always work as architects to be very thoughtful. And of course, yes, my Jean Ray Camp Larson used to be on the HPC from our firm. She's one of the principals at our firm. And so we're familiar with the HPC, and we certainly appreciate the work that they do to keep Country Club historic and maintain the historic features that are in this neighborhood that make it so wonderful. When we started this application, and I don't know if I can go back to one of those. Can I go back to your presentation? Is it that next one? Okay. Our intent of this certificate of appropriateness was to make minimal impacts to the front of the house. So I think at one point we're like, well, what's really different? Can you tell? So this is part of a greater renovation and addition to this house. And one of the biggest parts of this addition is to solve kind of a problem with the front step. And what's interesting is this home is historic, and it doesn't have a front stoop. It's basically like a zero threshold. I think over time it's sunk. And what we're hoping to do is bring back that historic stoop so that we don't have water management issues that have been ongoing since the homeowner has lived here. Snow drifts in when opening the front door, leaves come in. We think the front door is warped, and the homeowner has had to replace it in the time that they've lived there. And if I go back to this other image, let's see if I toggle back and forth. So what you can see, some other parts of this front stoop. You can see that there's this dropped front. So when you step into the house on the interior, there's this tripper step that has caused many issues for the homeowner. Their child had to get stitches, had fallen, hit his head. Every time they have people over at their house, they have to let them know if they haven't been here, please watch for the step. So it's been a constant headache for the homeowners. And then just not having this, most houses have a stoop, and this house doesn't have one. So between those features, we're trying to bring back some of these original historic features, but also be practical. We think that we're within the bounds of rehabilitation and the plan of treatment. The fan light is something we would love to keep. If we were to keep a fan light and raise the stoop, we would have to completely rebuild this. So we would have to change the slope, You can see in the photograph that there is a windowsill that comes about 6 inches from the top of that roof line. So we wouldn't want to impact that sill, that historic sill. And we would probably have to, we'd have to completely rebuild it in order to have that fit in that space. So we thought the easiest way to accomplish our goals is just to switch out the door. We did find some other examples within Country Club. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, sorry. Of other colonials that have archtop doors, and also have historic front stoops. So we went through the neighborhood and went through various different houses, and some of these are kind of a mashup of different styles. But for the vast majority of these, and maybe the historic consultants could weigh in as well, that there is precedent in the neighborhood for an archtop door. So between these various kind of practical needs and also precedent in the neighborhood, we felt like, gosh, we have to appeal this because this is really just seems like not an issue. So with that, I'm available for questions, and Jessica Kelly is also here, the homeowner, to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions at this point in time for Ms. Wingate? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not a builder, I'm not an architect. Is there a way of, but I do have a front stoop that is separated from the sidewalk several times because of settling in the earth. Is there a way to determine that it actually has sunk over time? Or is it just that's the best guess of what's happened?
Yeah, I think over time, I think that's the best guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there was some discussion at the Heritage Preservation Commission meeting about regrading, and it felt like, well, that it's such a flat site that it would be really arduous to find a way to regrade, and also just a big project. Yeah.
So I buy the fact that it probably has sunk over time, but I just didn't know if there was a technical way of, just driving something in the ground to see if it's really has sunk down or if that's...
I'm sure there is
okay.
a way to yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Can you go
Risser.
back to, there we go, that's good. I think I really appreciate Member Jackson's question, and it would be interesting, to see just if it has sunk, how high it was originally intended to be. I don't know what would be involved in that. My concern with changing things is that arch doorway does visually have a very different impact because you've got that white line and then you've got the fan motif above it. And then if you start changing the height, you're changing, the proportion of the pillars and all of that, and you kind of lose the aesthetic appeal of the entryway. So that is something that I am thinking about, and I can understand why the Heritage Preservation Board was concerned.
I guess we'll hear from the folks that were advising the Heritage Preservation Board. Well, you've got this slide up, let me ask. So if this appeal were granted and you were able to do what you intend to do, would you get rid of that tripper staircase then? Would that, you could level out the floor on the first level and you'd walk right in?
Correct.
And then what happens with that space above the existing doorway where it looks like the stairway turns and goes upstairs? What do you do there? Where the sheetrock or plaster or whatever it is blocking that fan?
Yeah, we're relocating that stair. So we're shifting it over. As part of this bigger renovation project, we're relocating that stair.
The staircase gets relocated.
You got it. And so by lifting that, so the main level floor is where you see that step up. So this is where, if you can see my cursor, that's the main level floor. The issue isn't necessarily the height on the inside, it's that brick arch, all the detail in the exterior that would have to adjust in order to get the stoop in with the fan light.
And the fan above the door in the existing home doesn't serve any useful purpose in terms of letting light into the house because it's blocked by that portion of the staircase.
Correct.
So it's an,
Yep, so it's a
it's an
panel.
exterior feature. Okay. Thank you. Stand by. We may have some more questions. I want to bring up the consultants for the Heritage Preservation Board, and I think we got Rachel Peterson and Elizabeth Gales with us. Maybe one or both want to come up and tell us what their thoughts were and the thoughts were of our Heritage Preservation Commission on this matter.
Sure. I'm Rachel Peterson with Hess Royce and Company. I'm one of the principals and co-owners there. We don't have a formal presentation for you. We're just here to answer questions. Unfortunately, both Elizabeth and I were unable to attend the HPC meeting when this item was heard. We have listened to it since then to understand what the discussion was, but didn't participate at that time. Our recommendations were based on evaluating this proposed scope of work against the plan of treatment. That's our role as the consultants. And best practices are to retain historic material and to retain character-defining features. On this house, the ornamentation around that front entry is a character-defining feature. That was our recommendation. If there are any other questions, we're happy to answer.
Well, your recommendation must have been compelling. It was a pretty strong vote.
We're good writers.
Yeah. Questions for Ms. Peterson? Point in time? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Dalrymple, what are the standards for variation from, I mean, when you look at this, at least in my eye, you don't see that much difference in the way the front of the house appears. But it has the effect of getting rid of that tripper staircase, and there's some other positive features. So what's the standard upon which all of us would have to work against or rely upon when we make a decision as to whether to agree or disagree with the Heritage Preservation Board?
The Heritage Preservation Commission uses the plan of treatment, and they also use the standards of rehabilitation for the Secretary of the Interior. So those are the standards that the consultants were speaking of. So they use the plan of treatment document, and then they use the standards of rehabilitation to make those decisions. It's nothing that's very prescriptive. It's all very...
So what I'm asking you is, if we thought this proposed change was consistent with the plan of treatment, why is our opinion worth any more than two consultants who specialize in this? What's the standard that we have to look at? I mean, is it, if this is a legal matter, you'd have a standard that you would, for review,
The findings that were presented to the Heritage Preservation Commission, if they felt that the changes were appropriate and met the plan of treatment that were proposed at the meeting, was that the proposed changes are an example of rehabilitation and they allow for compatible use while making improvements to the home, which is preferred treatment in the Country Club District. And one of the findings could have been that the arched doorway mimics the historic fan transom and is appropriate for a colonial style home. So those could be two findings that you would use.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you define rehabilitation and how it's used?
I'm going to defer to our consultants if you probably have the best definition of rehabilitation for us.
Rachel Peterson again. I would have to look up. The National Park Service is kind of the overarching body that has an actual definition for you that I do not have memorized.
That's okay.
Even after 11 years in this field. Short and sweet of it is that rehabilitation allows for more change, whereas other standards like preservation or reconstruction are much more regimented and much more prescriptive. Rehabilitation allows for some adaptive reuse, like the warehouses into condos that you might see in the North Loop. Those are examples of rehabilitation. So there is more flexibility, but you're still following the standards, the Secretary of the Interior standards, which have been adapted into the plan of treatment based on overarching preservation best practices.
So if you're fixing something that isn't working, that would be rehabilitation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's fits within both our local plan and the federal standards?
Yes, the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation are the broader industry framework that the plan of treatment is based on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does our plan of treatment allows for rehabilitation?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So while you're there, Ms. Peterson, Ms. Ms. Wingate showed us one photo of a house that looked almost identical. It was a two-story house, looked like it was from the 40s. And it looked to me like the treatment on the front of that house, the entryway, was almost identical to what they were proposing here. Was that not a colonial revival style home, or is that a different style home?
Good question. We'll pull that up here. I will say that several of the examples, as was acknowledged,
One,
are
yeah,
not-
that one right there.
Yep, I would consider that a colonial revival house. Part of the nuance of historic preservation as a practice is that you evaluate historic properties as what they are, rather than comparing them against other examples or against a archetypical example of the style. And that's what we did with this house. This house always historically had a fan transom panel. It is a historic character-defining feature.
They fit a general category of houses, and then you look at unique features of that particular home.
Correct, and the evolution of that specific property and all of those factors.
That was the fan light that
Yes,
served no purpose.
that is a solid panel on
Is
this
it?
house. Yep.
Okay. Other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Stand by.
Okay.
This is a public hearing. We're going to open it up for public testimony. Anybody in the audience wish to testify, you'd have 3 minutes to come up and testify, and encourage you to use one of the side podiums unless you have some overhead projections you want to use, and we'll give you a handheld microphone. Anybody wish to come forward? Okay. Do we have anybody online?
We do not currently, but we just put up the call-in information again, so I do recommend that we wait 1 minute just due to the delay in the broadcast.
Let's do that. Yep. Okay. It's a great little street you live on over there. Regardless of what your front door looks like, it's a great street.
We're coming up on a minute here, and we still have no callers.
Okay, all right. Council members, the recommendation of staff is that we close the public input at noon on Sunday, September 7th, 2025, and continue the action to the September 16, 2025 City Council meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Member Agnew, who's on a roll tonight. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the motion as stated, which is to close the public input at noon on Sunday, September 7, 2025, and continue the action to September 16, 2025 City Council meeting relative to the request for a certificate of appropriateness. And any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion stated say aye. 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 Opposed? Carried. We'll take this matter up again on September 16th. Thanks for being here, folks. Thank you, Ms. Dalrymple. And now we are on to Resolution 2025-79, accepting donations. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2025-79?
So moved.
Second.
Agnew moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of Resolution 2025-79, which is a donation, prospective donation to the city of Edina from one of our residents. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2025-79 say aye. 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 Opposed? Carried. Resolution 2025-79 is adopted. We have one donor in this particular reporting period for a memorial bench at Centennial Lakes Park. Terry Hoffer, $3,200 donation for a memorial bench. That was very, very generous. Terry, thank you. Terry, female. And now we've got some information coming our way from our Finance Director, Pa Tao, and then also Nick Anhut is with us to talk about the sale of some bonds that cover the swimming pool work we needed to do and the Vernon Avenue Bridge.
Good evening. I have here with me again is Nick Anhut from Ellers, our senior municipal advisor, which he will now present on what those bid results looks like after they have taken them in and tabulated. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Nick Anhut with Ellers. Happy to be in front of you and to kind of close out this summer and all of our bonding discussions. We did open bids this morning on behalf of the city on the purchase of bonds issued for the projects that Pa mentioned. The slide shows, again, Vernon Avenue and the Highway 100 overpass project, a small portion of that overall cost being financed and repaid from a dedicated tax levy over the course of 15 years. And then the remaining portion of the bond, what was about $8.4 million a project, the council took action to put some cash and set it aside to pay for or cover a portion of that project budget, almost $1.4 million, so we're able to reduce the amount, but that's funding for the improvements that are underway at the Aquatic Center facility in the city, also to be repaid from a tax levy over the course of the next 15 years. Just as a reminder, a public hearing was held on both of these matters on June 17th, continued to action on July 15th, where the council establishing an abatement, as well as adopted a street reconstruction plan that authorized the council to determine to issue debt for these specific projects. The council took further action on August 6th after reviewing the budget for the Aquatic Center to authorize scheduling a bond sale, and we're here tonight at the culmination of that, opening the bids on behalf of the project. We did open bids earlier this summer on the purchase of another series of bonds. Both of these bonds were rated by both Moody's Investor Service as well as Standard & Poor's, who assigned a AAA ratings on both of these transactions, as well as the city's overall creditworthiness, ratings that the city has maintained and held since the years 2003 and 2000. Happy to say that we had 11 bids this morning on this transaction. We had 7 on the last bond sale. A full variety of various municipal broker-dealers and underwriters from across the country and some of the largest firms in the United States, with Hilltop Securities coming in at the winning bid. The total spread between the high and the low was just under 1/4 percentage point between all of these bidders, and I'll actually note that the top 8 bidders were all within 0.005 of a percentage point, so very, very tight bidding amongst the top few. But Hilltop Securities came in with the winning bid. Their indicated rate before making any adjustments and the financing costs came in at 3.64, or just under 3.65%. As a result of the bid from Hilltop and all the final issuance costs, that reduction that I mentioned for the city setting aside some fund balance to cover a portion of the project expense, the final resized principal amount is just under $8.8 million, so $8,785,000 in total to combine fund both of those projects. That size was also reduced because Hilltop did include some reoffering premium within the structure of their bid, and as I mentioned, we finalized the issuance costs, could reduce it for any of the budgeted amounts that were set aside or planned. After reductions and revising the debt structure, the calculated true interest cost using the pricing from Hilltop was at a 3.67%. This is in comparison to our pre-sale estimates. We're above 3.9%. Admittedly intentionally conservative, but this is in line with where the market is at today, and certainly the bidding reflects some consensus among the market on where the pricing should be because of so many were so close at the top of the bidding pool. It's also more favorable compared to the bonds that were priced earlier this summer, although I will note that those bonds were 30-year repayment, and usually we do expect a higher interest expense associated with a longer repayment term, so nothing that you need to be worried about as far as how those were priced, but just to note, there was a difference in the calculated interest expense over the life of the bond repayment. So with that said, there is an updated resolution. There was a draft that was included in the council packets. The bond attorneys for the city at Dorsey and Whitney did update and revise those to input the pricing and from the winning bid from Hilltop Securities. And that is presented tonight for the council to take action on. It's Resolution 2575, which would authorize the issuance and award the sale of $8,785,000 in general obligation bonds. Our closing will be scheduled for September 25th, pending your action this evening.
All right, good. Thank you for that report. It was very thorough. Nice to have so many people, companies interested in our bonding.
Good turnout.
And what's the process? You know, when let's say Hilltop Securities, did you know they were interested? Did they call you and talk to you about Edina, or what? How does a lot of this activity take place?
Well, Hilltop is a very active bidder in the municipal bond marketplace, very large firm out of Dallas.
So it's not the guys across the street here.
No.
Hilltop.
Correct. So they do quite frequently bid on a variety of transactions here in Minnesota, across the country, and certainly they would have noticed the city of Edina, AAA credit, and some of those features in the bond marketplace. I think the majority of the bidders are some of the larger pools. We expect that they will be considering. Can never really guarantee that anyone's going to actually pull the trigger and submit a bid. It really depends on kind of their day-to-day amount of interest, what else they've bought recently in the marketplace, trading activity, and their customer base that they'll be reoffering these bonds to. So, but we do see they are quite active. A number of other participants, Piper Sandler, Baird. I think we've seen them repeatedly on the city's queue. A couple of the bidders at the bottom of the list were new. StoneX was one that we haven't seen them necessarily bid on a full transaction before. Sometimes you can partner with other underwriters, but no.
Good.
It's a
Other
competitive
questions
process.
for Mr. Anhut or comments? All right, so the motion would be to approve Resolution 2025-75, awarding the sale of $8,785,000 in general obligation bonds, Series 2025B, to Hilltop Securities of Dallas, Texas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Is there someone who cares to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of Resolution 2025-75 in the form stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2025-75 as stated, with the sale of $8,785,000 worth of general obligation bonds to Hilltop Securities in Dallas, Texas, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I'm being consistent with the voting that I've done, but I do believe it passed. I was the one no vote.
4 ayes, 1 no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And then we got visiting about this at our last meeting, and we had a vote, and I don't think we had a motion or a second. So we need to revisit Resolution 2025-69, which was the approving a special law for the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District. I have this vague recollection I was going to ask, now who moved that? And I didn't ask that. I just assumed we had talked it through. So we've been through this matter before. I don't know if Bill Newendorf is in here. I don't know if you want to provide any updated information.
I have this tonight. So this is important. There's a defect in the voting process that happened at the August 19th meeting. This is the voting process for a special law is very important to observe. The state requires us to just be very tight in terms of our process in getting you to approve this special law before we turn it back to the state. So that's what we're looking for tonight. There's nothing that's changed. Everything that we talked about on the previous meeting on August 19th is still the same.
Yeah. My screw up. I think it's the first time that our clerk hasn't grabbed me by the ear or two and said, hey,
Wanted to.
Mayor.
Yes, you wanted to. Yeah.
You need a motion. All right, do we have a motion to that effect to adopt Resolution 2025-69, approving a special law for the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Agnew, second by Member Pierce to adopt Resolution 2025-69, which approves a special law for the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District. Any further discussion? Member Risser.
I want to underscore, this was the legislature creating a special law for us to advance or to extend 2 TIF districts. And with the 70th and France TIF district, and I asked whether representatives in the legislature, the tax committee, knew that we had been talking about the public assuming the risk for building the parking ramp for that project. And I was told it was not the purview of the tax committee to know that. But I do think it really was, because how do you make a decision if you don't know that, you know, our elected leaders in Edina, and this is from the March 27th meeting, background on proposed financing structure for public parking at 7001 France Avenue. Site plan approved in 2022 is not financeable under current economic conditions, even with existing TIF pledge. So I think that's really relevant, and I think that should have been part of the packet that went before the legislature. And so I really have trouble with the way that this has advanced. The other thing is that we approved asking the legislature to extend these 2 TIF districts back in January. We didn't have this information. It didn't come to us until March. And so it's all about the sequencing. I did go back, I watched that March 27th HRA meeting, and I think it was really, that's the one where Commissioner Pierce talked about the boat taking on water, a hole in the boat, and there was concern about the project really being a viable project. And I think it was important to have that discussion. And I feel like the way things do get advanced leaves out a lot of the narrative that really would be helpful. And so we are going to be extending this TIF district. It may be a project that is not really viable. It may mean that it lingers as an undeveloped site for quite a while. So that weighs on me. But it's interesting to watch, and you can watch it on YouTube, the tax committee from March 12th and the information presented, and then March 27th before the HRA, how things change. So I can't support this, and thank you for listening to my concerns.
Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have 2 questions for Manager Neal. First of all, how many cities got extensions like this approximately? Do you know?
I would estimate a dozen, probably, maybe 12 to 15, something like that.
And were you at those hearings?
I attended a couple of those hearings. It had multiple hearings.
How many of those cities were talking about the rapid increase of the interest rates delaying projects?
Probably all of them, because we have been through a period of pretty rapid construction inflation, and so that was an issue that was impacting a lot of not only tax increment projects, but also a lot of bonding bill projects too.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, the vote tonight is to acknowledge that the state changed the law. It is not to approve anything regarding our extension of this TIF. It is simply to acknowledge that the legislature did as we asked them, and it created the possibility that we could extend it. We're not making any decision about the actual TIF tonight.
That's correct, right. Okay. The way that the special law process works is cities or local governments propose that to the legislature. It maybe gets approved in some form. Then it comes back to the city, and that's when the electeds at the city level say, yes, we'll take that, and we then communicate that back to state government, and then it's law.
And it in no circumstances obligates us to award any kind of TIF or any particular financing.
That's correct.
It empowers us, but it doesn't force us to do it.
That's correct. This only enables you to do this if you wish to later down the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2025-69 approving the special law for the 70th and France Tax Increment Financing District, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Resolution 2025 is approved, -69 is approved on a 4-to-1 vote and adopted. So, all right, let's move on then to, I don't think we've had any commission correspondence come in tonight. So on to manager comments.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have just one for tonight.
This clerk of ours, she had you down making comments at 8:20. And it is 8:19.
We've worked together a long time.
Yeah, she was a little off her game.
At your next council meeting on the 16th of September, we're going to have a public hearing that night on how we wish to handle the Board of Appeal and Equalization going forward. So as we've talked many times, we have merged or transferred or whatever verb you'd like you're most comfortable with, our assessing functions from our city government to county government. That also has an impact on how we do the Board of Appeal and Equalization. So we're putting together kind of the background information that are on the options that are available to you, but I wanted you to know tonight that you'll see this public hearing on your next council meeting agenda, and that's what it's for. You don't have to take an action that night. We can still keep our regular action of delaying an action to the next council meeting, but we'll have a discussion on it on September 16th.
Very good. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
Member Russer?
I would like to thank Manager Neal because I forwarded an email from a resident who was very concerned about and rightfully so, about the shooting at Annunciation. And she had specific ideas that I think could be advanced at the legislative level. And he did take action and forwarded them on to the lobbyists that we work with. And so I just want people to know that there's a lot of dialogue going on, and we do get a lot of email. This one, I think this individual must be working with a group to help prevent gun violence. And so it's heartening to know we have so many engaged people in Edina. It's also heartening to know that we, have staff who will move things forward. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like us to pass something denouncing gun violence, whether it's, and nobody, for all the emails we got, and they were very passionate and very moving, but they didn't give us a specific resolution to work on. I'd like some input from the police department on the number of guns on the street and what they're seeing. If we have to draft it ourselves, if there's something out there that we can join on to, I would be happy to move and support that, but I'd like us to make a formal statement, especially if there's going to be a special session. I want our city to be on record as opposing gun violence and to do something about just the prevalence of guns that are out there and the easy availability from people who shouldn't have guns.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that has been, I've been really struggling with, because I have had a number of emails, a few phone calls about the tragedy and people asking for gun violence legislation. And I think that definitely is of value to the community. But what I've been struggling with is this idea that I don't know that gun violence, I don't know that guns are the core of the issue here. And so I did a bunch of research and I wrote a piece, wasn't comfortable publishing it, but kind of the bookends, I looked, back in the 1940s, people used ropes and they lit fires, right? And so they torched churches, sometimes with people present. In the 50s, they bombed churches. And so in Birmingham, there were 4 little girls, 1953, right? They're preparing for choir practice, and someone bombs the church, kills those 4 little girls. And in that case, that really started a push towards civil rights when people looked at that and said, oh my goodness, is there no place in America that's sacred anymore? And so fast forward to 2025, and there are several times when there have been individuals with guns going into sacred spaces where there are children, whether it's Catholic churches, or there's one instance where there's Mormon church as well. And so one of the things that just I can't wrap my head around in terms of how you solve the core of the issue, I feel like there's smoldering hate within our culture, and we haven't dealt with it as a nation. And so people act out in these ways. And so I definitely will always support gun legislation, right? Getting more guns off the streets, right? That's definitely a step in the right direction. But there's an issue that we have that's core to part of our culture, and I'm just not sure what to do about that, what I can do about that. But that's what I've been thinking about for the past week and a half. So, other than that, that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Agnew.
Thank you. I want to build on what Member Jackson was saying. I think, there's things that we can do as a city and things that we cannot do as a city. And I want to make sure that we're doing as many of the things that we can do. One of them is absolutely passing some type of resolution. So whether we have something that's drafted or if you want to work on that together, I would be more than happy to do that. We could collaborate on something. Love that we already have a couple of the bills that were suggested in that same email of let's double down with our city lobbyists to make sure that these are on the agenda for the state of Minnesota, as well as when we go forward and do our federal communications and policy setting. I love that we're already looking at and influencing what type of measures can we kind of advocate for as a city. And I know we already are talking in collaboration with the school board too, right? There's things that we can do at a school board level, and there's the things that we can do at our law enforcement level. And so it's just really great to know that there are some things that we can do, and we're starting down the path of looking into those. And then where we cannot pass the legislation or create the policy, we're at least using our voices to try and influence that. So happy to work with you and potentially see more of that soon. I also, beyond that, want to talk a little bit about the e-bike usage. I've gotten a couple of emails, I think just in general, of now that school is back in session, I think I've seen even an uptick in the number of kids that are driving e-bikes to school. And I live right by middle school, and I see them all the time. And every single time I'm like, you're not 15. I know that. Unless you've been held back a couple times, you're probably not 15. So it kind of made me think, I don't know if that's an opportunity for us to, I don't know, and even Manager Neal gave me the little handout, and I don't have it right with me now, but I know we created some lit and some communication, and maybe we go and we stick them on the bikes that are gonna be chained up during the day at the schools, some way to continue getting the word out and the campaign out. Someone emailed in suggesting that we confiscate all of the bikes and go in with bolt cutters, and that might be a little extreme, and I'm not suggesting that. I think we start with a little bit of lit on each of those. But I think, again, it's just that reminder. And then I also got a question about 50th and France in particular. It sounds like there might be a lot of use there. So I don't know, and I'm looking over at our officer here tonight. I don't know if you've seen or gotten a lot of complaints about specifically bike uses usage on the sidewalks at 50th and France, because I know that's an area where it's prohibited. But if you could maybe speak to if that's been an area of concern, and then I don't know if there's anything that we could do to, I don't know, more signage in that area or whatnot, but.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an area of concern. We've been trying to put resources there to address it. We're making a lot of phone calls to parents to try to educate them as well too. We developed a system to where we can track the complaints now too. So since we all met and approved the ordinance, we've had close to 70 complaints, and we track whether or not we've been able to make contact with the folks or the children, make contact with the parents as well too, and we're trying to enforce it, but not heavy-handed. I don't want to hand out a lot of citations to children. I don't think that's the answer here. But by working with the parents, we're really trying to educate them. On a positive note, hopefully you're seeing a lot of them wear helmets. One thing I have seen this summer is a huge uptick in kids wearing helmets on the bikes as well too. Doesn't solve the under 15 problem, but we're continuously working on it. I've talked to the SROs. They're taking a peek at it. Obviously, last week kind of gave us a little bit of a, derailment there with our efforts or whatnot too. But it's something that we're going to continue to look at, work at, and we've got some key contacts in the schools that we can try to leverage as well too.
Well, thank you. I think those were the two items I had.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for both those topics. I was listening to my colleagues talk about the gun violence issue, and a note for all of you and our general population that we are working with our legislative delegation on having a community conversation on gun violence prevention. And so they're trying to find some dates that give people enough advance notice where they can try to get there, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in our community interested in having that conversation. And so we have to figure out where to do it too. I think we've got a couple of sanctuaries that hold about 1,000 people, but that might be or the Performing Arts Center at the high school. It probably holds about 1,000. That would be a good spot for it. So we'll keep you posted on that. A lot of political leaders talking about this issue since we had our HRA meeting, and it was down there in Lyndhurst Park that night, and there was, the mayor of Minneapolis spoke, and he did a wonderful job talking about the situation, I thought, and our Attorney General was there, and a lot of state legislators, people that had grandkids as victims. So that conversation is going on, but to the point all of you are raising, and in fact, the mayors were over at the Capitol today, and the governor's supposed to come out with his notions on legislation. And I didn't have a chance to go over because of my schedule, but I think we're just about at the point where we're done talking and getting to the doing, what you're talking about. Let's get to the doing, all of us thinking about it. So what is that? What can we do as a city? Wouldn't take too long for us to hit the courthouse steps, I suppose, if we banned assault weapons in Edina. But there are other things we can do. And so I think we should all be thinking about that and doing what we can do around this issue. That's it for me, too. Cause Manager Neal, do you have anything else you want to add? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and second to adjourn the meeting of the City Council of the City of Edina this Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025 at 8:32 p.m. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? We stand adjourned.